Our next presenting guest is Dr. Kath from Germany, and he will be speaking about from information to knowledge, the forgotten conversation with the self in times of CHATGPT. Dr. Kath, welcome. Thank you.
Om Svarupaya Namaha, Om Shri Satgurave Namaha, Om Karam Bindu Sayuktam, Nityan Dhyayanti Yoginah, Kamadam Mokshadam Jaiva, Om Karaya Namo Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. And this is the opening prayer with which we start normally. So, a few words about EUAA. We are a conglomeration of 15 countries, individual members, organizations, and companies. And our main goal is to develop and establish accepted standards. Coming to the subject of this conference, cultural heritage for the modern times. The past seems unchangeable, and we want to learn from it and bring good out of our heritage. Now, what does heritage mean? Does it mean an accumulation of information whose, according to a logical system, leads to an optimal result? What is this heritage? And can we harness it for health? The answer in Goethe's Faust gives us a first clue. What you have inherited from your fathers, acquire it in order to possess it. Only adapted knowledge, that is, knowledge that is translated into action, is useful. The knowledge is at the same time evidence-based on practice. The practitioner experiences directly that the method he uses leads to a result. So, we consider it as a systematic exploration taking place under observation. Furthermore, it is characterized by a personal relationship. The relationship of the practitioner to the patient. Treatment regularly involves more than the observation of a phenomenon or symptom described by the patient. The treated person can be perceived as a whole being. His speech, his movements, his eyes or his pulse, which is examined, especially in Ayurveda, as an excellent mirror for a holistic diagnosis. The choice of therapy, then, is linked to the immediate experience of the individual's state of mind. If this experience of the state of mind is separated from the choice of therapy, essential factors for an effective healing process are lost. The practitioner perceives the person being treated, and his perception shapes his or her further course of action. If the relationship between the practitioner and the patient is characterized by trust on the one hand and love on the other, healing and what we call miracles will happen much more easily. So let's keep in mind, inheritance is intimately connected with the actions of the inheritor. The inherited knowledge acquires weight only when we apply it. Equally significant is the relationship and interaction of the treated and the treated. Let us look at the purely science-oriented drug research as a counterexample. As someone unfamiliar with this field, meaning me, I look with great respect at the long list that leads from pre-discovery to drug discovery and preclinical studies to clinical studies to review and finally approval. It takes often several years, requires cross-faculty knowledge, the use of a lot of material and people, and therefore incurs quite considerable costs. Side effects are then accepted as unavoidable for all drugs, brought to market according to the benefit to risk ratio principle. What helps many can also cause a little harm. The drug developed for a defined clinical picture statistically brings a chance of cure for the patient. Not less, but also not more. Any statement beyond that would also be unscientific from a scientific point of view. For me, it's interesting to observe when science-oriented research describes the use of alternative healing methods as unscientific and thus questionable. Now, evidence. The success of the use of approved drugs is without any doubt questionable. The success must be questioned because the use will by no means verifiable serve the well-being of the patient. No practitioner would be so presumptuous as to promise a guaranteed effect. A demonstrable effect for the use of a method or a drug for the concrete patient is never taken over. Here we encounter it as the magic provability of effectiveness. The only scientifically serious admissible statement regarding evidence-based medications would be, this medication has proved relief for a defined group of people in a narrowly defined area of application. This approach requires a precise and thus narrow definition of the complaint. And even a studied group of tens of thousands does not guarantee efficacy in an individual case. This does not even consider the always present side effects. What should I say to this as a patient? My very personal answer after an exchange with the person treating me, for example, the doctor or therapist, would be, I trust you. And if you recommend taking it, I will follow your recommendation. Trust is the basis of treatment on the side of the treated. If the patient trusts the doctor, there is a good chance that he will follow the advice carefully. On the side of the treated, trust in the inherited knowledge is a basis for treatment. The doctor or therapist who appreciates the inherited knowledge, e.g. trusts what she or he has learned from his or her father or mother, his teacher, will use his knowledge with confidence and with due care. In this context, I would like to reproduce the statement of some scientific researchers from France, the US, and from May this year. Our hope is that one day it becomes possible to rapidly design inexpensive, more specific, more effective, non-toxic, and personalized drugs. This is a goal towards which all authors of this article have devoted most of their careers. Researchers are, it seems to me, sincerely concerned about developing helpful substances without side effects. What is remarkable here is that the personalization of medicines is explicitly being pursued. This gives us hope for good opportunities for collaboration in the future. which is also emphasized as necessary by the authors. Incidentally, I do not consider a race with company-funded research to prove the efficacy of treatment methods to be either sensible or advisable. The difference in resources is too great, whether in the research itself or in the marketing of the publication of research results. I see the strength of alternative healing methods such as those of yoga and Ayurveda in another area. The holistic approach reaches the human being in his essence, in his real self. And more people are taking advantage of these possibilities. I see it as our central task to provide access to these possibilities for those who are looking for them, an access that is not limited to mechanical therapies and the administration of medication. Whoever has experienced healing and strengthening in this way will be a living example of the effectiveness of therapies such as yoga and Ayurveda, instead of a counting point in the statistics. This person will be able to serve as a vivid example to those around him. So what does this have to do with ChatGPT? In the world of work, AI technologies such as the rapidly advancing virtual consulting are being examined to see what potential they have to replace certain professions. This was also stressed by Professor, I don't remember his name, he just spoke. Health professions were also covered. Methodically, the core activities are identified and tested for their automatability. For physicians and non-medical practitioners, 6 core activities were identified. For all of them, automatability was assessed as 0. But what is the reason for that? Information technology makes it possible to analyze large amounts of data at lightning speed. At the touch of a button, I gain access to everything entered by people or systems designed by people. In the process, answers presuppose questions, and the answer is determined by the question. No matter how large the amount of data is I can access, a logic-based system will only be able to provide a helpful answer to a question that is accurately identified and described as a problem. The system bases its answer very closely on the questions. The quality of the question is an important factor in the quality of the answer. So, are we asking the right questions? Do advanced technologies such as ChatGPT provide fruitful input for unlocking known knowledge? At this point, a practical test is in order. When asked what alternatively healing methods could be considered for long COVID, I received the following responses. I want to go to this. But you see, homeopathy is mentioned, herbal medicine, dietary changes, biofeedback, physical therapies, and so on. The potential advantage of using AI at this point is beginning to show. A large amount of information is scanned very quickly. This was seconds, no? The answer came in seconds. And programs usually have no biases. However, as the evaluation of homeopathy shows, the mainstream is reflected negatively in the response. This is unfortunate and shows obvious limitations of artificial intelligence. However, a serious possibility in the search for answers, i.e., should not be underestimated. But sometimes we get answers without having asked the question, is my daughter well? Will this meal suit me? Should this event take place? Where do these answers come from? Why do I trust my wife when she makes a recommendation? So we can think about who we are asking the question to. A close person I can trust can be considered, or I can even ask myself the question, Can a source of answer to health question be that inner voice? If I want to solve problems myself, then it might be worth asking who or what is myself? What is or what does intuition mean? Is there a way to access the source of these kinds of answers? Owning in the sense of activation the heritage proposes an inner conversation about access to and evaluation of information. In this conversation, I look for the experience of intuition, the self as I understand the traditions. The transmitted knowledge of yoga and Ayurveda is an inexhaustible source of knowledge. I can learn to understand what is good for me and what is good for another. The information, though the conversation with the chatbot puts us on the path, the applied knowledge lets us move forward, and the inner voice can guide us. 3 more sentences. My teacher has always stressed the importance of trust and servant practice as the foundation for true happiness. Trust beyond what is possible, an open heart, and reaching out with helping hands. The flow that springs from trust and loving service created the inheritance and continues to create new knowledge. This knowledge has the power to heal us and our world. Sarvetra sukhina santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkham apnayat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kath, for your profound presentation and contribution to this platform. We must truly connect with ourselves in order to open the door to self-discovery.